I'm gonna make sure we don't have an echo. Now I'm checking to see.
A picture.
Test, test.
I can hear you.
It is October 1st, 2024 at 5:34 PM. I now call to order the City of College Place City Council Workshop. Emmy, will you please take roll call?
Yes, Mayor. Councilmember Jessup,
Present.
Councilmember Cleveland,
Present.
Councilmember Espinoza,
Present.
Councilmember Peterson,
Present.
Councilmember Williams. Present. We do have a quorum.
Right. Will you all please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Thank you. It's time for public comment. Emmy, did anyone submit a written comment in advance or request to speak via telephone or virtually?
No, ma'am.
Okay, if anyone in council chambers would like to speak during public comment time, please raise your hand. All right, seeing none, we're going to move on to workshop topics. We have 8 topics on the agenda for tonight. So the first is Police Chief Tamaris is going to present a life-saving award to 2 of our officers tonight.
Thank you, Mayor and Council, Mr. Rizzatello. I'm very much proud to be standing before you to present these awards. What I'd like to first do is have Officer Adams and Officer Dennis come up here and stand up here with me. On May 18th, 2024, 2 members of the College Place Police Department responded to a medical emergency at a home located on Wallula Avenue. Dispatch reported a male was in cardiac arrest. Officers Eric Adams and Austin Dennis were near the area at the time and responded, arriving first on scene. Officers found an adult male unconscious with blue lips and no pulse lying on his bed. Officers immediately began performing CPR and rescue breathing. Officers Adams and Dennis continued life-saving procedures until medics from the College Place Fire Department arrived. Thankfully, the adult male regained a pulse and was transported to the hospital where he made a full recovery. And that male has the name of Robert, and he is with us tonight, right here. I want to recognize the actions of Officer Adams and Dennis for their life-saving efforts. Their quick actions contributed to the saving of a life that night. I also want to mention, through humility, neither officer reported their heroic actions. They simply went about their work serving our community. Tonight, we get to publicly recognize their actions. Therefore, it is my honor to recognize each individual effort with accommodation and a thank you for a job well done. Eric? Thank you, sir. Austin? Thank you, sir. Each one of them will be getting a life-saving pin that they can wear on their uniform to recognize their achievements. I also want to thank Tori, Robert's daughter, who brought this to my attention so that we were able to present this award to our officers tonight. And gentlemen, thank you for a job well done. Appreciate your work.
Great. That was amazing. Oh, goodness. Okay,
Everyone's got tears.
I know. That was.
I think all of us, at some point in our lives will owe a debt to first responders, police, firefighter, EMT. And, so it's nice to be able to recognize them.
Absolutely, absolutely. I know for them it's part of their everyday, but for us it's breathtaking, right? To think of what they go through. That goes for you. Okay, speaking of as well, next Chief Winter's going to present on the upcoming ambulance service rate change for 2025.
It's too bad they left so early. I'm always looking for volunteers. Good evening. I'm bringing a maintenance matter as far as our billing rate for our ambulance service. We've not increased our rate since 2018. And with talks with Walla Walla Fire District 4, we would like to raise our rate to the same rate they're planning to raise theirs, so that pretty much countywide, the rate would be the same. You'll notice in the rate schedule there is a $200 discount for people who live within our community. That is an offset cost because of the EMS levy that we pass every 6 years. And that's where that extra $200 comes from. You'll notice on this document in here, you'll notice that if we had raised our rates 3% every year, what we're asking for is actually less than that. And we feel it's justified due to the costs we are facing, the cost versus personnel and equipment and disposable items, that it's time that we did raise our rates. And so I'm looking for guidance from you to bring it back in consent at the next for a rate increase. Happy to answer any questions.
All right, let's go through council members for any questions or comments. Councilmember Jessup.
This is great. Thanks for the numbers to look through it. So when you guys do the 3% or 4%, is it like inflation or like COLA, or like what do you guys base that on?
So from the utility side of things, it's based on essentially a provision of service. So the needed capital, the costing operations, all of that. And frankly, as we're dealing with the labor unions and so forth, it tends to be looked at as all contracts with the comparable cities, which tend to be around 4 or 5%, especially fire police, because otherwise you end up in binding arbitration with those groups. And keep in mind what he's presenting in front of you, that isn't like the ambulance utility, that's like what you're charging the insurance and so forth, because it's a concept the state has now called balance billing, where if we miss the boat on this, then it's going to be way more of a pain in the future to try to deal with it.
Thank you for the details and clarity and the being, it's quite reasonable. So thank you.
And he alluded to balance billing, which is really a good thing for the citizens of Washington State. Balance billing is when we send, or any medical service sends a bill to you. They can't go after the amount that your insurance doesn't pay beyond what your share is responsible for. So when insurance company pays, they don't usually pay at the 100%. They have a negotiated rate. And so what balance billing is doing is saying, if the insurance company says, well, you charged $10, we're only going to pay you $7 and your copay is $1, I can't go for the remainder to make the $10 whole. So it's really good for the customer and the client. It doesn't affect ground ambulance a whole lot, but it's going to do wonders for clinics and doctors' offices as far as the patient.
Councilmember Cleveland. Councilmember Espinosa.
No questions, thank you.
Councilmember Peterson.
So you made a comment that the rate of increase was similar to Walla Walla?
So the fire district 4, now that they've passed their levy, is going to be raising the rate the same level we are.
So just for clarification, are we talking about total dollar amount, or are we talking about rate of increase?
So we currently are at the same rate, and we are going to the same new number.
So total number.
Total number.
Okay.
We're not changing the mileage rate at all. We haven't seen a whole lot of increase in fuel costs.
Yeah.
So we're going to stay at that. But we still feel we're below the state average. And we will be within like $4 of what the city of Walla Walla charges for the same level of service.
In total,
In total.
after the increase.
Correct.
Yeah,
Yeah. We're moving to 800. They're moving to 800.
got it. Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Williams.
So this is a one-time increase. Are we looking at perhaps putting in an annual increase so that we don't end up with these, big jumps?
We certainly could. I think it's difficult if we're wanting to stay equal with our neighbors. As they presented this to me, they like to stay with round numbers. It's easier for their math. So if I say we want to do a 3% annual increase or cost of, inflation increase, it's hard to come out ending in a 0.
Fair enough.
So it's a
Okay.
trade-off.
Yeah, heaven forbid people have to do math.
I think the uniformity is a good idea. It prevents any confusions or annoyances, I guess. One has to pick it up because the other one's unable to, and then the increase of cost to the consumer or the resident or non-resident, whoever. So I think being uniform across the board with our neighbors is a really great idea.
Yeah, so there's also 2 things. With the balance billing, insurance companies won't be allowed to just take the Medicare write-off, which is where we're at currently. What Medicare pays is what all insurance companies pay. With this balance billing, we should be able to see more funds coming from insurance companies that have a higher rate of pay. So that's a bonus for us as well.
Does it add much to you workload?
No, we have a billing company.
Just, perfect. Sounds good to me. Any other questions or comments? Oh, Mr. Carlton.
You've been promoted.
Yeah, I just want to remind everybody that this has nothing to do with the amount of revenue we recognize as income to the city. We only recognize income on the cash basis, so what we really get paid. So this isn't a risk that we recognize revenue, higher revenue in risks of not collecting and have to write it off. We only recognize those revenues when we receive it.
Yeah, and with this revenue, because of how insurance pays, they pay in arrears, so we wouldn't start seeing this for months ahead.
Councilmember Peterson?
That being said, you do have insurance companies out there that pay 100%. 1%, 2% of your business?
I've not seen somebody pay 100%.
Well, percent of charges.
Yeah, we do get closer, yes.
So it could be additional revenue to this city.
But yes, I think.
I mean, it's going to be a slice. I mean,
Mhm.
when you talk about Medicare, Medicare's not the cap, but Medicare's the
minimum.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Medicaid probably is the minimum, but
We actually get paid quite well from Medicaid.
oh, really?
We are in a program called GEMT, which is Ground Emergency Medical Transports. And Medicaid looks at what it actually costs us to transport. So we do a huge, or Brian does a
Cost based.
huge thing.
Yeah.
And then they, at the end of the year, pay us half of what the actual cost was. And what they say the cost was is way higher than our rate.
Yeah. So my point being, this could be a $10,000 amount instead of 700.
Correct.
And all it means is that you write off 9,900.
It could, yes.
Right. Whereas by increasing this, there are some companies perhaps, and I don't care about the numbers.
Sure.
But potentially there's additional revenue coming in on some of the Aetnas and the.
Correct.
Yeah. So it's probably, it's here or there. So, yeah. Okay. All right.
You've worked in the field. It's hard to track
No,
what
I'm just
insurance
saying,
companies
yeah,
gonna
it's,
do.
yeah. In the trenches, I wouldn't say the fields, but yeah, so, okay, yeah.
Field of fire trenches.
Yeah, okay, yeah. All right. No, that's good. So potentially there's potentially there's always an upside perhaps for the city,
Yes.
but yeah, okay, great, thanks.
All right. Any other questions or comments? All right.
So,
I think it's clear. We're ready for when you put it on the agenda.
all right, thank you.
All right.
We have to have this in. We live in a state that is very generous of our time. 2 weeks ago, they said you will have this in by October 16th.
Okay. So
So it was very generous of our time to allow us to present this and get it to them by then.
So on the 15th, send it to Mary Elizabeth to get it on the agendas. All right.
No pressure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good job. Thank you.
We'll get this for you. Okay, next is Mr. Colton's gonna give us a preview of the 2025 federal legislative agenda. John, welcome.
Hello, Mayor. Thank you so much. Hello, Council. I apologize. I am in my truck and driving, or you would see me in person. I think College Place did really, really well this last year. As we're going into FY25, as we're getting through it, I think there's a couple things we want to pay close attention to. Number one is our appropriations bills. So the city of College Place was awarded, as I think the council all knows, a community funded project through Congresswoman McMorris Rogers. That is for our water tower. However, we will not be receiving that money until Congress passes those appropriations bills. Now, right now, we have a continuing resolution that goes until December 20th. In a continuing resolution, Congress essentially just uses the same funding level that it did the previous year. The conversation is that once December 20th hits, we will either do a very, very short extension, or, which is more likely, is the appropriations bills will be passed sometime in February or March. That'll be after elections, after both parties figure out what chambers they have. It depends on whoever's in the White House. That being said, this has become a common practice of Congress. So I don't think any of us should be that surprised. But to that end, I think we're probably going to see appropriations bills passed around March, and then Mr. Rizzatello can talk about the relationship that happens. The agency reaches out, forms that grant relationship, and you go through the process of securing the funding. That is one path and one success. An additional piece of legislation that we're all going to want to be watching is the 2024 WRDA bill. That's the Water Resources and Development Act. In that bill, in both the House and Senate text, the city of College Place is authorized for $5 million more for the water tower. Now, that process, we potentially could see it passed, WRDA passed before the end of this year. If not, just like the appropriations bills, we should see it passed early next year. Once that happens, we will write a letter of intent to the Army Corps of Engineers, telling them that we would like to start the process of being awarded money through WRDA Section 219, the Environmental Infrastructure Program. And Mr. Rizzatello has had multiple conversations with the Corps, knows the project very well by now. And I think we are ready to go to write that letter the next day after WRDA is passed. So then looking forward, we have FY26 already coming up, in which case we're going to have to look at what our new funding requests are going to be through the appropriation cycle. And you can see that we have, again, the water tower, which we have secured or in the process of securing a substantial amount of federal dollars. And then the second project is the Lions Park. Now, in this FY25 appropriation cycle, we were submitted to the appropriate committee through Senator Cantwell for that project. These earmarks are very, very competitive, and so we did not make it out of the committee. But this is the second year in a row that Senator Cantwell has submitted that project to the subcommittee for us. So we've certainly gained a lot of traction. This coming year, we've already had a conversation with Senator Murray's office, and given the childcare piece, the library piece, and other components of that project, there certainly was interest. So in FY26, we have had a pretty robust conversation about applying to Senator Murray for that project. So I apologize, I've just talked at you all for about 5 straight minutes. Is there any
No.
questions I can answer?
Thank you. We appreciate it. Disappointing we didn't make it out of committee yet with Cantwell again, but appreciate her putting it forward. Councilmember Jessup, questions or comments for Mr. Colton?
Not at the moment. Thank you very much.
Councilmember Cleveland?
Absolutely.
No questions. Thank you for all your hard work.
Thank you.
Councilmember Espinosa?
Just a comment. I think that these projects are really exciting, and these are the projects that generations in the future will get to enjoy. So I'm excited to see us get the funding and seeing it come to fruition. Thank you for your work.
Absolutely. And I will throw in very briefly that Mr. Rizzatello and I have been having conversations with the EDA. And we are currently in the process of going through or starting the process of doing a SED study that will also help out with some of those infrastructure needs for those projects. And I will say kudos to Mr. Rizzatello, because we are one of the few cities that are doing a SED study. For context, this is usually an entire county or multiple counties. But College Place is really, we put ourselves on the map by doing a city SED study. I know this is all wonky, boring stuff, but the point is we are setting ourselves up to continue those efforts to build out infrastructure for those important projects. So thank you so much.
Now we're a bit wonky ourselves, so we love hearing about it. Councilmember Peterson.
What does EDA stand for?
So CDS is congressionally directed spending.
Was it CDS or E?
Oh, EDA is the Economic Development Administration. And to put in perspective, so usually most areas, a county has like an associated development agency and they'll do the SEDS. And if you have a recognized SEDS, it qualifies you for all these buckets of EDA grant dollars. Our port is an ADO, but they only have a study. It essentially checks all the boxes of the requirements for SEDS. We inquired like, hey, do you want to do one to do that? They declined to essentially follow those guidelines. So then we basically harassed EDA until they're like, give them money, and then they gave money. So
Thank you.
yeah.
Thank you, Mike.
That's a good
Yeah.
description.
That's about how it works. Give them money. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Councilmember Williams.
So SEDS study is, what is SEDS?
Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy. So actually, the economic development element that we did for our comprehensive plan 6 years ago, in talking with the EDA, believe it or not, they actually did check all the boxes. But here's the problem. Unfortunately, by the time we talked with them, EDA has different deadlines as opposed to the State Department of Commerce, and you have to update SEDS every 6 years as opposed to 8 years. So by the time we started barking up that tree, the 6 years already passed. So even though it would have qualified as a SEDS, it was past the deadline.
Okay, got it. And we're not like state and federal legislators. We're used to being talked up for way more than 5 minutes at a time. But my question, my question is, the different monies that we're getting appropriated in different years for the water tower, is there a time limit that we have to spend that money by? Or can these stack until we get enough money?
So just speaking from the agreements that we've gotten in past years for our wastewater treatment plan earmark, the deadline on that was essentially a 10-year window. And at the rate we're collecting money for that, I don't think we'll even need the 10 years, because even outside of the earmarks that Mr. Colton just described, through State Department of Health, they're processing it, but we're going to be getting 10 million from them. So 10 million plus all this actually gets you over what the estimate is. So
amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions or comments? All right. John, thank you so much.
I have just, yes, Mayor, I just have one more comment for everybody. I want to I hope you and Mr. Rizzatello are able to come to DC again in January for the council and everyone. Mayor is quite popular amongst the members and staff. So we're doing quite well when we get her in those offices. So I will just throw that out there.
I was going to ask when's our next trip to DC, but I got a little embarrassed to ask. So I'm glad you brought it up.
No, absolutely. So thank you everyone for this opportunity. And as always, feel free to call or email or anything if you have any questions.
Well, thank you. Oh, wait, one more quick question. Councilmember Williams has one more.
Yes.
So I can't imagine that the city can afford to send many of us to DC, but if we end up that we're going to be in DC for other reasons, should we let you know? Is that helpful?
Yes, absolutely. And I'm happy to set up any meetings that you want. I mean, if you're going back through a conference or something else, I'm guessing those organizers will do those things. But yes, absolutely, please. And I can help set up any meetings or anything that you need that would be beneficial.
Okay, well, my October trip got canceled, so we're looking at next year at this point. But thank you.
Of course.
All right, John, you have yourself a very good evening. Safe driving.
Great. Thank you, everyone. Have a good
Thanks for
evening.
being here.
All right. Bye-bye.
All right, so next, Mr. Enslow is going to present on the priorities and key issues for the city of College Place in next year's state legislative agenda.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the council. Thank you for the opportunity to speak before you tonight. I am Brian Enslow. I'm your state government affairs contractor. Technically, I represent the coalition of local governments in the Walla Walla area, which of course is the fine city of College Place, the port of Walla Walla, and the county of Walla Walla. As we've got here up on the screen right now, you can see we have a pretty appropriately robust agenda for the state legislative agenda. So I apologize, have to take more than 5 minutes of your time, but I assure you this presentation will be EDA, ADO, SUD, BHASO free. I do have on a slide, I do have it spelled out. So we'll do our best. Hopefully you all have a copy of this. We will go through these topics in the presentation, and I think if that's appropriate, we can go ahead and load that up. Let's just go ahead and go to the next slide, please. I'm going to just provide a little bit of context. I know you all are very astute, so a lot of this will be basic for you, but I'm going to do a little level setting just so hopefully we at least I know and you know we all have a shared understanding. Operating revenue for and I always start with the budget because I'm a former budget writer, so that's my bias. But like it's been this way for a couple of years. It's kind of like, I don't know. The operating budget took a little bit of a dip down in June, but has been remaining steady in cash collection since then. And I've been looking at other cities, and sales tax seems to be okay. So we're kind of bumping along as projected. And for context, the state budget for the 2-year period on the operating side was $70 billion. So, when it moves $500 million, that would be a lot, obviously, to the city of College Place, astronomical, right? We're operating on a whole different set of commas than what the state is. But $500 million here and there on a $70 billion base is kind of almost within the range of error. So, we're doing okay on the money wise. On the spending side, what we're looking at and what we're hearing from some of the caucus leaders from the House and the Senate is they're projecting as much as a $7 to $8 billion deficit, or like a gap, I should say, not deficit, a gap between projected revenues, projected spending. Some of that is because of those November elections. Your guess is as good as mine as to whether the initiative that repeals the capital gains tax is going to pass. Your guess is as good as mine as to whether the initiative that repeals the Climate Commitment Act is going to pass. If those both pass, there's a cumulative impact of around $6 billion in foregone revenue for the next 5 years. And I don't know, we all see some of our own polling. So my guess might be slightly more informed, but they both look like they're passing based on the information I see. So that has the potential to really impact the operating side on the capital gains tax. And then the Climate Commitment Act is actually spread in the capital budget, the transportation budget, and the operating budget. Transportation revenue, gas tax is actually bumping along okay. If Climate Commitment Act goes down, it does punch a hole in the transit-related programs and multimodal. Even within that context, we have the agency is coming out and saying we're woefully underfunded on preservation and maintenance. Okay, so what does this all mean? Legislators next year are going to be having a revenue conversation, and they're going to be having a operating revenue conversation and a transportation revenue conversation. Unlikely that they would do both. that's not politically savvy. So there might be some trade-offs where maybe they look at something like, say, replacing the existing cap with a 3% cap on the property side and then share some of that transportation. So we'll be following that closely and reporting back to you. All right, let's go to the next slide, please. I'm probably the oldest person in this room, so meet the new boss, same as the old boss, might not resonate with people younger than me, but the concept is there's going to be some new players and some new folks, but I think from a just general kind of like compass, I wouldn't anticipate a significant change. I don't anticipate the majorities changing in the House or the Senate. We will have a new governor. It more likely than not will be our current AG, Bob Ferguson. So he seems to like government more than this current governor and like the executive. So that might play, and the agencies might have a little bit more juice than they currently do. But other than that, like I kind of see it kind of, similar. The key numbers here to look at 58 and 40 and 29 and 20. And if we go to the next slide, I will tell you why. I'm a little worried about the possibility of supermajorities. And what I will say is, as a city, our job is to fill a pothole. And that pothole is not partisan. And your problem, you're pragmatic, you're problem solvers. And a lot of times when there's a more balanced government, it often comes for better results for municipalities. So I'm a little worried that if we get to supermajorities, we might be vulnerable to kind of increase in labor costs, additional expenditures on it. Anyhow, I think cities do better in a world where we have a little bit more balance. And so I am looking at those numbers. There are several elections in play that are worth looking at. As I mentioned, there will be new leadership on the Senate side for sure. Senator Billig from the Spokane area stepped down. So and we don't know who the new leader is going to be. Campaign promises without resources to back them up. So as I mentioned, there's a lot of folks out there making some promises, but there's no operating money. So what does that mean? Look for policies like rent control that don't cost the state anymore. Look for things like, think about things that would resonate with various bases that might not cost money. And those are some of the things that I'm targeting for us to kind of think about and look at and be vigilant on. So that's why I'm mentioning that. And we'll talk more about it on the next slide on our ask, but capital budgets are going to be tight because they're a function of how much money you have to spend on the operating side. So we're going to have to take a little modest approach on that. But next slide, please. These projects are going to look familiar to you because you just had the conversation with Mr. Colton on them. And that's by design. You've heard me extol the virtues of Mr. Rizzatello before. He's really good at his job. And one of the things he really does is help create that community alignment that you all reflect and ensure that, that what you're doing on the federal side is what you're doing on the local side, what you're doing. So we're all in alignment. So you really get kind of that synergistic effect of working on capital projects and things like that. So to preemptively answer Councilmember Williams' question for the state side, 2 years is the budget is biennial, so we get 2 years. That being said, sometimes projects take longer than you think, and you can usually get permission to move funding from one biennium to another biennium. So not 10 years like the federal government, but 2-year appropriation that if something goes a little bit wonky, you can usually ask for another 2 years. So I am happy to report that in last year's budget, we did get $2.5 million from the state, roughly. I think it was 2.55 for the Lions Park Community Center. I think given how attractive and how great it is for the community, I think it's appropriate to go back and look. I think what we've talked about at the staff level is kind of like floating with your legislators or which one of these elements resonates the most. Commercial kitchen, childcare, library, they're all great elements. But kind of honing in on what we think your members attract to, and then targeting that specific portion of the ask. I agree with Councilmember Espinoza. These are great projects. Next slide, please. Again, these projects you see on the federal presentation as well. Every time I come to College Place, I myself have to remind myself to slow down when I'm on 12th because it is so wide. I feel like I always want to drive way faster than the speed limit. We do, as I mentioned in the previous slide, look to kind of get braided funding. Legislators love it when there's a local component, a federal component, and a state component. So that's, again, that's part of the strategy. And then with SR 125, the connection to being able to unlock development and housing and some other things is something that I think that makes a really attractive project at the state level. Next slide, please. I think to summarize like the first 3 bullets and concepts, I mean, it gets back to, the balance of responsibilities is really going to be tested between state and local government in this year. And this is a theme that's kind of interwoven in these next couple slides and for some of you, this is going to be a repeat joke, but when the water starts drying up around the watering hole, you look at the animals a little bit differently. And when state resources start drying up or their desire to fund more projects or more programs starts to exceed their revenue, they start looking at local government and start looking for ways for you to do more. So I think we need to be really ardent in our support of the existing infrastructure programs that exist, whether it be the Transportation Improvement Board, the Public Works Trust Fund, RCO, things of that nature. Those are where we really need to focus. And then the last bullet, I think we all know that, one of the great crises of our day is housing supply, unhoused individuals. And, quite frankly, the answer is we need to do everything. And so we really need to look at additional options for the housing continuum. Next slide, please. This is a recurring item. I wish we had made more progress on this, but one of the areas we've looked at is like streamlining some of the requirements around the subboards and subcommittees on Main Street program. There is some new leadership and some new staff, so we're going to continue to work on those relationships. And childcare is going to be a major issue. And I think we'll see a lot of ideas being put forth that really try to create incentives. We have the second bullet mentions multifamily property tax exemption and the need to extend that. I've also heard some, like having a conceptualization of if developers provide childcare or childcare facility in the multifamily unit, should there be or ought not there be a tax exemption for something like that? So those are some of the things that are going to be considered in legislature this year, I think. And as the details emerge, we'll share them with you and make sure that you get an opportunity to weigh in on those and get a weigh in on the details. Next slide, please. This first bullet really ties back to my comment about some of the concept of campaign promises and without additional money. And I do worry about proposals that we'll see around that expansion of tort liability, things of that nature. Last year, there was a bill that would start accruing interest. Current law is interest on a claim starts accruing from the moment you have been notified, and the public policy value of that is, hey, we've told you there's a problem and now you can address it. we saw a proposal last year that said from the moment the incurrence, which only incentivized people to not let you know when there's a problem until, the last minute, and there's already, years worth of interest accrued. So those are the kind of things that, I'm a little nervous about and that we need to be particularly vigilant about. And so that's that's what that item gets at. We'll see the RAP Act again. The Senate composition is going to be different, and some of those Senate Democrats that didn't support the RAP Act are gone now. So I think it's more likely this year that the product stewardship legislation moves forward, but still TBD. In addition to just kind of, working against vexatious requesters and some of the really, inappropriate conduct that's impacting our ability to engage in civil discourse, I think we will also see some more interest around crisis responders and protections around crisis responders that look more like like every other first responder, I'd say. And some of there's Public Records Act components to that as well. Next slide, please. I was just reading an article that the Washington State Employment Security Department asked the governor in their budget request for 100, no, I don't want to exaggerate, for 98 new FTEs to help implement the paid family medical leave program. So that is a testament to the fact that that program has been pretty highly utilized. Since 2020, 500,000 people have used it. They've pushed out $5 billion worth of benefits. And part of the reason why they're asking for more FTEs is they're anticipating a 35% increase in usage this year. So that is going to appears to be an increasing challenge from the HR side and from the cost driver side, and so irrespective of the merits of the policy, just finding ways to actually fund it and continue to do business, I think is important to consider. And then, as always, and this will now be the kind of the third time I've hit this, I just, 3 years ago, there was $15 billion in extra resources when you factored in all of the additional federal money and all of the kind of uptick in state assumptions. And so it was just a different world for most of the legislators that are currently sitting in Olympia, and them having to make tough choices and potentially cut and disappoint people is going to put pressure on us. It just is. So we will have to work very diligently to work on having those responsibilities cascade down to us without resources. Next slide, please. I'm going to highlight the Basic Law Enforcement Academy. And as I promised, there was a BLEA in here. Great success last year. After many years of trying to get that fully funded and restored to 100% funding of and honestly, it's not even state money. For those who have been around, it's ticket revenue that we that our local courts, starting from the infractions up through the court system that's submitted to the state, that used to be a separate account and tracked as a separate account. It just got rolled into the general fund. So it's 100% of our money that we're already sending them without having to add backfill even more. So that's something that we really want to support and hold. I mentioned co-responders and crisis before. I think we all know the value of that system. And we really want to make sure that we find ways in which the system works and meshes together, both from a kind of back office, like how the money flows, and then also from in the field, how the policies are implemented. So, and then I guess lastly, with the passage of Blake, you know, kind of all drug crimes and drug prosecutions now are no longer at the county level. They're no longer at all the court infrastructure at the county level. They're at the municipal level, and it's up to your discretion on how you want to handle those. But you know, with that kind of responsibility will come pressure and public pressure, and so we need to continue to look at additional grants for you know, local courts because of that circumstance of having, you know, no longer having felony, you know, drug possession crimes, and how is that gonna shake out? So next slide, please. I think I already hit that first bullet. Sorry, I flipped my pages before I actually flipped the slide. And then, you know, I don't know how much conversation you all had about the indigent defense standards. I know Mike and I have. One of the reasons why some individuals are having a hard time getting justice in the appropriate amount of time is because the crime lab is so backed up. So I think that's really key as we work to really kind of work with the courts to figure out the indigent defense standards and what's you know, really how we get to a system that doesn't measure inputs but measures outcomes and measures results for individuals, and gets better metrics for having, you know, a just justice system, if you will. But none of that happens without actually having the crime lab being able to process court, you know, evidence and tests in an adequate time frame. So I believe that is the conclusion of my slides. I think the next slide just says questions. Yes, it does. So I said a lot. I kind of said it in my super fast voice because we had a lot of material to get through. So I hope it was at least semi-coherent, but I'm happy to answer any questions as appropriate.
Thank you, Mr. Henslow. So let's go to Councilmember Jessup for any questions or comments.
Thank you very much for the extensive report. So as I'm processing, looking through it again and processing, and I'm trying to think of a way in which to articulate to those who ask me the various state legislation coming up. To reiterate, what I heard was, for political means, the state is about to put forth policies which is going to increase spending, which is putting pressure on finding new revenue to pay for those fundings, which then ultimately puts the onus on the city to find ways to pay for unfunded mandates. So if I wrap that up, what then would be our role as a council and or communicating with our constituents to help try to mitigate that?
Right. No, I appreciate that. And I appreciate the opportunity to perhaps clarify or refine. You know, you know, another thing I just saw recently is that the health insurance rates for the state are going up 10%. Labor contracts. So built within the structure of just the cost of doing Washington state government are major cost drivers, which are increasing the cost, irrespective of any kind of political choice, kind of just built into the model now.
Yeah.
Okay. And I will say it is not my intention to impugn any specific legislators or legislators. It's, you pay me to be nervous, and I do get nervous when the money gets a little tight.
Well, I'm sorry, I will retract adjective for
No,
political
no,
means. I guess I was trying to articulate it in a more palatable way.
Yeah, no, you did great. And you really teed up a great question. It's like, how do we talk to our legislators about this? And that is really the rub. And I think that's important to just say, you know, really look at the details and make sure, you know, what's being talked about isn't something that's going to put, you know, an additional burden or an additional cost on local government, and really just, you know, ask them that if those conversations come up to help hold the line. I think I think that gets at what you were getting at, but if I still missed the mark, I apologize.
No, you got it on the state level for me personally, in terms of if I speak to legislatures, and my role as a council, I don't know exactly what that would be in terms of this presentation, be honest with you. I'm also thinking of the other way, when I have constituents asking me about state legislatures and what do we do in taxes and spending, you know, all the questions that somebody at a grassroots level kind of ask you. My second question was really kind of more of a practical question of like, all right, what do I tell my constituents about what's coming up and what's coming down the line?
Yeah, I think it's fair to tell them that there is going to be a significant conversation about revenue. I think the outcome of that conversation is to be determined, but you know, and let them know that those are the things that are going to be discussed, and have them, you know, talk to their legislators about their opinions on those matters as appropriate, I think.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Councilmember Cleveland,
No questions, thank you.
Councilmember Espinosa.
Brian, thank you for the presentation. One quick question for you. With the changing of the guard and the new governor coming in, do you see these priorities changing or staying the same?
This is a really great question. It like, you're gonna hate me. You're gonna be like, of course he says it depends. It depends on the granularity of how you want to look at it. And I you know, it's hard for me to. I want to say something, but I want to preface by saying, you know, I'm politically agnostic. You know, it's not for me to kind of pick and choose winners or whatever, but let's just, I'm looking at the polling. I'm going to assume it's Governor Ferguson. If you guys have a problem with me, I'm saying that, I apologize, but we can revisit it. But here's, so at the 10,000 foot level, right? You've had, well, gosh, it's been since like 1980 since we've had a Republican governor. So, but it's going to be a lot of more of the same in terms of general values and general compass. What I'm excited about, possible Governor-elect Ferguson, is he is an individual that really cares about the organization and governance itself, right? He's like running, you know, he's been in part responsible for running county. He's run an agency, and when it comes to this, and I think he is going, and you might think this is bad, you might think it's good. I think he is going to be a much more effective individual in working with the legislature, where in the past 12 years, I don't think this governor has really been as successful in the legislative environment as previous governors, and as I think future governors will be. And I think one of the things I think I see now is I see the legislature without a strong executive. I think you don't see as good a policy, and I don't think you see policy where you've really had a robust conversation of how it's going to hit the streets and how that dollar is going to get into the community, how that program's working in the community. So I'm actually pretty optimistic in terms of just like overall quality of governance. And as someone I've only done government, I sell government, I believe in government. I'm excited, and I think the brand of Washington state government has the opportunity to get better. That's what I see. As far as the various political issues, you know, the current governor has obviously been all in on climate, and beyond that, it would be hard to say. This governor has a little bit more diverse book of interests. He's obviously been very, very engaged on the opioid settlement and behavioral health. So I think you'll see a much stronger emphasis from a policy direction on kind of like public health, behavioral health pieces based on that. And you know, and just a general more engagement on the details of kind of every issue.
Perfect. Thanks so much. And I know you don't have a crystal ball. So, but you know, at the end of the day, I think it's about what is going to impact our community locally. that I'm concerned about. So I appreciate
Yeah.
your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember.
Councilmember Peterson.
Yeah, quick question. I was desperately Googling here, trying to look back over time. What your comments on the transportation bill? It's funded, underfunded, okay, or where's it at?
It's not good. So
Let me, okay, so,
it's cost.
and that's after Mr. Inman,
I know.
Inman?
Yes.
There you go. Where that was thrown out by the courts, correct? Look at the reductions.
The most recent one. Yes.
Yeah, so even after that,
Yes.
and that was, if that had gone through, that was the end of life as we know it. But even with that, we have some issues, correct?
Correct. Correct.
And yeah, go ahead.
No, sorry. Mostly due to increase in cost from from the time the projects were initially scoped out to, double, if not double digit, very near double digit inflation for the last like 4 years.
Yeah.
That's the rub. That's where it's not penciling out anymore.
Okay, great. So yeah, we're lucky it didn't go through, but it's still, yeah, not good news. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for the opportunity. As always, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to clarify.
Councilmember Williams.
No questions. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Enslow, I have some questions for you. Did I hear you say that, so no one knows where the capital gains is going to go, but if let's say that it fails and as in people vote it out, did I hear you say that they might shore that fund up another way?
So, yeah, and I'm always worried, no matter what I say, I'm worried about,
Understood.
like bias or the sense of bias, and I'm trying to, I try to be the most recent publicly available polling that I saw that was produced by the Elway Institute seemed to indicate that more people than not were going to vote yes on those initiatives and therefore repeal climate commitment and repeal capital gains. You have an operating budget that, as I mentioned, is facing significant cost pressure on the salaries and benefits side of the equation, right? The negotiated contracts, the significant increase in health benefits. And then you combine that with a budget assumption for ensuing bienniums that assumed, I'm trying to filibuster long enough to where I can pull my note up, but I think the fiscal estimate I said on capital gains was 2.2 billion for the next 5 years, but like the next 4-year outlook. So the underlying budget assumes that money's there. If that money is no longer there, that means the legislature is going to have to choose to either cut programs, cut individuals, or increase revenue. I would guess that it would be more palatable to the legislative makeup currently, and probably, which will be probably pretty similar to the legislative makeup after November, that they would be more inclined to look at revenue increases than cut programs.
Okay.
It'll be a mixture of both, but probably heavier on the revenue side, would be my guess.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification. And then, I watched the debate, the candidates debate, and Ferguson kept talking about how he will invest more in courts or the legal side of things. Do you think if Ferguson's our governor, that we will find more investments in our courts or any changes in that indigent defense fund or potentially the crime lab?
Yeah, I'm going to be interested to see how he delivers on that. I think depending, right, there's he has been very successful in negotiating a separate opioid settlement for the state of Washington. And that is something that I think you can tangibly tie back to an increased, that will go back to the justice system in some form, whether it be, right, some of that's going to go to prevention, some of that's going to be DOH, some of that's going to be schools, some of that's going to be, but some of that's going to be in therapeutic courts, some of that's going to be hopefully in like Medicaid system and getting Suboxone and other things like out in the community, whether it's so I would say that he's going to be able to deliver on that based on the settlement alone. As far as the state picking up responsibility for the cost of indigent defense, I'll believe it when I see it. So I'm still a little skeptical on that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was afraid of that.
So am I.
Now, last question, and again, crystal ball time. Do you see any effects with the changes that's going to be going on in both, the Senate and the House that could impact southeastern Washington as opposed to, Western Washington gets so much attention and so much of the majority of the funds. But do you see anything that might be impacting us that we should either prepare or be aware or, keep in mind as we make our plans?
Yeah, I mean, so what, and I kind of miffed on this on the first pass, so I'm glad the opportunity to highlight it again. One of the things that supermajorities allow is for it takes 60% to pass a bond bill. So your capital budget is predicated on bonds. Your transportation budget historically has been predicated on bonds. And then historically, those have been bipartisan efforts. And so if you have a 60 votes in the House and 30 votes in the Senate, you can see a capital budget that isn't bipartisan. And you can see funding being very Puget Sound centric. The last transportation budget proposal was a pay-as-you-go cash proposal. So it didn't need 60%, and it passed on basically a straight party line vote. And you see it in the projects list where, with the exception of like a little bit in Spokane and some transit over in the Tri-Cities, it was largely a Puget Sound centric transportation plan. So 16 billion, 16 years. And so if you get to those numbers, which I don't think it's going to happen, but I do think is in play, that's where, I mean, that's one of the biggest places where I see, vast areas of the state kind of being left out of the game. And I don't, irrespective of your political bent, I think major things like a transportation revenue package or a capital, statewide, capital budget package, I believe it's best when it is bipartisan, quite frankly. So
agree. Yep. Okay. Councilmember Jessup has one more question for you.
Real quick, Brian, thank you. I enjoy this stuff as well. So I'd love to have a conversation of the issues-based versus fiscally minded legislation coming through. You did a great job on the unbiased part, as a teacher myself of government. So I'm being optimistic with this question. What are the chances you've heard any conversation at all going anywhere regarding the state level voucher system for families in regards to education, meaning voucher systems that allow school choice for families for private schools or homeschooling, since it's such increased over the last several years?
So I understand the question. I understand the issue. I will say that's the one thing cities don't do. So I'm not, my ear is not finely tuned, but I can make a commitment to you, which is I can ask around to my more sophisticated K-12 brethren, and I can get back to you through Mike and see kind of what people who know more about that issue than me are hearing and saying and thinking. So great question. I wish I had an answer for you, but it's a little bit outside of my, well, it's way outside of my expertise.
No worries. No worries. I was just trying to be
Yeah.
optimistic.
No.
You know, no need to worry time or effort on.
Public school teacher here.
Yeah, no, it's important to you. It's
Yeah.
important to me. I'm happy to get back to you.
I think we could do a whole evening on just these discussions. So any other questions or comments? And I won't ask any more. All right.
I love it. Questions. So
Okay. Well, we thank you so much for all this information on these details. We definitely would like to perhaps maybe have you back and get some updates as things progress, maybe after the elections, if anything, you hear anything different. We definitely would like to stay on top of that.
yeah, that'd be great. I'd be happy to.
All right. Well, thank you so very much. You have yourself a great night.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Thank you for your patience. We are now, Mr. Rakai he's gonna return to us with the analysis of the College Place Community Survey and to continue our strategic planning process with a vision and mission statement discussion. And Zach, I assume the second round of survey questions are gonna be wrapped into this one as well?
Yes, well, we extended the survey with the same questions, so that's what we'll start off with a little bit, I think the PowerPoint instead of. And then talk a little bit about visioning. And I know we've got a long agenda tonight, so if we get to mission, if not, we can work through some prioritization and then work on mission at a later time as well. But we want to make sure that we cover everything here. So thank you, Madam Mayor and members of the council. Good evening, Zach Rakai with Sageland Strategic, and I'm here for installment 2 of our strategic planning process. So as we recall, our purpose here is to, obviously we're gathered to strategically plan, creating a vibrant future for College Place, identifying those key priorities and goals for the future as they stand today as we look towards the future. Embrace this chance to create a lasting legacy for the community and obviously preserve and sustain the beautiful community that we know. So we wanted to make sure that we're reminded of our mission here this evening. It went back. So as you recall through our strategic planning process, there's really 4 questions that we're answering through this process. So where are we now? Where are we going? Which is the crux of tonight, looking at vision, looking at priorities. What does our future look like? What does it feel like? How will we get there? Will be our next meeting where we go through goals and objectives and create those. And then how do we know? What are our outcomes? What community are we going to see at the end of the process? So this evening, I want to recap some of the results of the extended survey, which is pretty similar, but a great effort to extend the survey and get more responses. And then talk a little bit about our visioning process and vision statement, get some ideas going with regard to that. See if we cover mission statement, but also go through our list of priorities. We have about 10 priorities that came out of the engagement process. See if we can sort of combine some of those, identify what the top 5 to 7 priorities are, and that'll be the framework around which we will form our goals and objectives later on in the process. So the engagement results that we have. So I came to you guys last month with 55 responses, 0 for the Spanish language. In discussions with Mike and some of the input we got from council, we decided to open it up for another 3.5 weeks or so. And also do a big push in the community for students now that students are back in place. So we got about 100 more. 157 responses continued into total responses. So great effort by College Place. Shows a lot of great effort in the community. Looking at the responses where you could identify if you're a resident, a business owner, or a student, we did have 37 students supply information and opinions into this as well. So I think that's a pretty good chunk.
Yeah, I saw the increase in the youth there, and it made me wonder if Councilmember Jessup had some of his classes do it. Okay.
Okay. So, yeah, we did still see the same results where it was primarily residential or residents of College Place. 37 students contributed to the effort as well. We did see a good spread of longevity, which means that a lot of the respondents, the majority had lived here in College Place for over 10 years. So definitely a lot of experience, a lot of opinions on the community, and a lot of people that have remained here and seemingly want to remain here. It was a well-balanced age distribution, especially getting some more of those student input there. So we did have, it wasn't just retirees responding or the 35 to 44 age demographic, but we did see a pretty good balance there. We still saw the same trends. In fact, I think adding some of the additional votes, we saw a little bit of an uptick that in the opinion that College Place is moving in a positive direction. First responders. So if we looked at what's most valued in the community, so if you look at police, fire, EMS, and the parks, that still remained as the top valued portions of the community. And same with what they had seen, what respondents had seen with what is lacking or needs to be promoted a little bit more or added. And that also drives into priorities and goals for the council. But senior programs and additional recreation opportunities in youth sports still remained our top 3 for that question. Same with the strengths that we've seen, looking at common words, looking at some of the common answers. Still, people felt that College Place was a safe, friendly, had a small town feel. Still seeing some similar trends in that response with the additional respondents. The community felt that College Place was prepared or even very well prepared to face challenges in the future. And then obviously some of the barriers to success, it was the similar responses. Do we have enough tax revenue to pay for services for the community? Are we able to provide essential services? And, customer service at the city, people were saying it's not necessarily a barrier to success, but where there is good customer service to maintain that for the community. Land ownership impacting business growth. I think it was, and I'll just be blunt, it was the university owning a lot of land in the downtown area. If you want to have goals in the downtown, that's what you bring. Sorry, a little bit of an echo there. And then obviously what we talked about with a lot of your federal and state legislative priorities, but unfunded mandates impacting operations and outcomes for the community. So we're seeing a lot of that. And a lot of people in the community are aware of that as well.
Can we go back one?
Yes, sir.
Can we drill down into customer service at the city?
Drill down a little bit into it. So a barrier to success is with regard to customer service at the city. If I'm recalling what I had read as part of the responses was to ensure that customer service remains good. If customer service from City Hall to the community kind of gets poorly rated or kind of lags behind where it's at right now, that would definitely be what was identified by respondents as a barrier to success. So it was framed in kind of a positive way. A barrier to success could be that customer service falls to a low favor for the community. But currently it's rated as pretty good. You bet. We asked the respondents in the survey, what upcoming trends could they see in the local area, the state, the region, the country, the world? But I think some of the trends that College Place were responded, what they said, some of the trends that should be embraced is obviously continue this strong sense of community. That's something that the community wants to preserve no matter what. Maintain that trust in leadership. Leadership from council to administration was identified as a strength in the community. So continue that trust. More recreational facilities. This could be everything from a park and a ball field to an actual building itself, ice arena or something like that. Some of those facilities, and obviously with your drive and your goals for Lions Park, obviously can certainly fulfill that as well. And then continued support for police and fire. Definitely a trend that obviously that's a highly valued asset of the community and the city government, and a trend that people want to see maintained. What do people want to preserve no matter what? Obviously the small town feel. That was a great asset. And, if we ask people what they tell others about College Place, it was that it is a small town feel. It's got a pretty large population, but you feel like you're part of the community. Still want to preserve those continued infrastructure improvements. So those go from, developing new roads to adding those sidewalks into neighborhoods that don't have sidewalks, and just continue on the improvements that College Place has been doing. Obviously, maintaining a sense of pride and safety was key. That was always touted as a great asset for the community, and they want to maintain that into the future. And support for children. So that comes to supporting the schools, the school districts, youth sports programs, recreation opportunities, and just general opportunities for children in the community. So any questions on the survey aspects with the additional respondents? A lot of it remained the same. A lot of the trends remain the same there. But we do have a lot more bulk to our responses.
Any questions? Councilmember Espinoza, any questions? No? Okay.
Okay. We'll move into vision. I've got my flip chart here to write up some notes as we have this discussion.
Actually, I want to, real quick.
Yeah.
Was there anything that stood out to you that might have been a negative that we need to be conscious or aware of?
Honestly, this throughout the outreach and in my last meeting in September, we talked about the interviews as well. There weren't a whole heck of a lot of negatives. I think some of the people talked about, some of the regional aspects, that collaboration still remaining as Walla Walla's little brother, that kind of thing, and making sure that, there's positive regional cooperation among the communities here to cooperate on services and operations. I think that's the first thing that popped into my mind.
Interesting. Those must have come from Walla Walla. Councilmember Jessup.
So for my sake in the future vision, so the idea is, organizations often, not us, but a lot of times, in organizations have changed for change sakes and that kind of stuff. Well, I'm really, really encouraged under Mike's and Mayor's leadership, we got more respondents. And I didn't encourage my classes, but under their, prompting. But that encourages me that the older citizens, but also a lot of youth under 18 kind of had that same idea, same concept. So when we go into future vision, is the concept here that we want to kind of continue that which they see as a positive and just kind of sneak in a few things of continued growth, or future vision is basically kind of keep going down the same path with a few things of areas of growth, I guess, if you will. And it's really just.
Yeah, and that's entirely up to you. So this segment's going to be for that vision statement. So it's a reflection. We saw a lot of people that want to preserve the community the way it was, obviously understanding that growth is inevitable and growth is coming to the community. But yeah, with the future vision statement, you want to make sure you're capturing, what in 10 years it's an actual statement, and I'll get into some more explanations.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'll rephrase, not growth, but areas of improvement, I call it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Councilmember Peterson.
Your comment was interesting about, the big brother, little brother, whatever. It said, and the reason why that kind of struck a chord with me, I've had discussions recently where somebody will come up to me, and interestingly enough, they want to know, what's the communication between the two cities? Are the councils meeting to, some sort of and we've done that, I mean, I think we've done better than perhaps in recent maybe decades for all I know, but, and it's not necessarily pointed at services being combined or anything like that. They want to know, is there communication happening? Because and I think that's interesting, because if you go to another area like maybe the Tri-Cities, I don't know, is the Pasco City Council communicating with Richland, city council? I don't know, that type of thing. I mean, maybe not. I don't know. But it does seem to be a key point that's brought up. And it's not from a point of weakness or a point of whatever. It's just they want to know that there are discussions taking place. And I'm not they're interested in that. And I think they're a little concerned about it, as far as wanting to make sure that takes place, but.
Sure.
And maybe that dovetails into what your comment, perhaps, or your outcome on do you believe that, as far as people asking that question?
In thinking about what it was shrouded in, what that was, not necessarily sure I can answer and confirm that. I think, having those discussions, making sure that people are talking, whether it's on a staff or elected official level, can certainly be read into that as well. I'd have to go back through and see if anything, more specific was stated as part of that. But I think you're correct. I mean, I think in the general sense, you're correct, is are we communicating? Are we having those conversations about the future?
I don't want to make too much out of it. I think there's a strong curiosity, and there's communications happening that we don't know about also, obviously.
Of course.
But yeah. Okay.
You bet.
All right, let's talk vision.
Okay. So looking at the vision, we looked at this slide last time, but wanted to talk a little bit about, and reiterate that again. When we asked the question in the interviews, what does a successful college place look like? There was a lot of people that talked about, sort of these 5 framework areas, like housing and workforce sustainability, affordable housing that supports the growth, that supports your workforce, economic and business development. So that's growth and business opportunities. We talked a lot about, whether it's large industry or just working on attracting small business. Talked a lot about tourism driven economic growth with the wine industry and things that draw people to the Walla Walla Valley. And obviously the vibrant, self-sufficient downtown came up as a lot of conversation pieces as well. Infrastructure was a huge response that we got back, and something that people look at as this is what a successful college place will look like 10 years and beyond. So enhanced walkability being a pretty key word. Develop and maintain your roadways and utilities. So obviously there's address the growth, improve the stuff, but you got to make sure that it's still in working order as well. And then new recreational facilities, which we talked about as part of the survey data as well. So managed growth and identity protection, which I think was a kind of a stumbling thing that sounds pretty rigid. But plan growth and preserve College Place's identity that, hey, we are set apart from Walla Walla. We are a unique community with a lot of great assets. You want to adapt to evolving demographics, whether it's younger populations coming in, more diverse populations. If there's new businesses, you have a university in the community as well. And then, manage that growth, but make sure that you're embracing those community values that keep Walla Walla in that mindset of being safe, small town feel, friendly community. And then leadership and community engagement. So a lot of people, talked about maintaining strong leadership. They also have talked about new community programs that have come about in the last couple of years, your festivals, your parades, your holiday celebrations, the holidays throughout the year, maintaining those to foster that community sense of pride. And a lot of people said, hey, we're having these activities in College Place now. I grew up here. I used to have to go to Walla Walla for that parade, but now we can do it right here in town. And I think that's a great idea of what a successful college place looks like. And obviously an engaged and informed community. So people that are informed as what's going on at City Hall, just taking some of the instances from the agenda this evening, your capital improvement improvement plans and things like that that are coming out. But people also engaged about your police officers and their life-saving realms as well. And, you know, your legislative agenda and just what you're working on both statewide and nationally as well. So making sure that your community is informed and engaged. So from,
I have a question about that. You know, I understand what you're saying, but we meet here occasionally. There's no one in the audience.
Yes.
And there's how many people on YouTube watching? 2? 0?
There was one earlier.
One earlier. No, that's better than 0.
Yeah.
So I think that's something, and we're not going to figure that out tonight.
Sure.
There's a newsletter that goes out and we do things like that, but the lack of involvement sometimes signals, I think, everything's fine. But there's definitely, I sometimes think there's a lack of communication that goes out just because there isn't an audience. And is somebody going to read the 2-page newsletter that goes out with the utility bill? You know, and so I think that's something maybe we could look at later, you know, in the future. It would be great to try to, and maybe that's just typical of city government. People don't show up. But it is, I think it does say something that we have a lack of audience here. And I don't, and a feedback. And so when you speak about engagement with the community, it is interesting how we can improve that, or do we need to improve it, or is it just fine, or what, you know, or am I making something out of nothing here? You know what I'm saying? So I think that's something that would be, you know, I think we notice when there's nobody here. And once again, I'm repeating myself now, maybe that means everything's just fine, you know, but your comment, perhaps not.
I don't know if it's necessarily perhaps not. I think it's just, I think, you know, people could say that, hey, it's fine now and we want to continue that. There could be, yeah, we love that we've been more engaged with the community in City Hall the last couple of years, but maybe there's just a couple other extra steps we could take, whether it's a staff member or just additional resources from the city's perspective. So I think, you know, and I love this because you're getting into like goal setting territory as well. It's like, okay, how do we assess this? You know, do we need to improve this? Do we need to assess this feasibility of greater engagement and everything? So that's why I wanted to take that note there. But yeah, I think that's something to find out. Often we'll get these like, hey, we want to see better engagement in the community. It may not be rooted in things are wrong right now, but it's like, yeah, we'd like to know. It's Tuesday night. I don't necessarily want to skip dinner and go to city council, but I'd like to know what was voted on. You
If
know,
they
that
want to
kind of thing.
recap. Yeah.
Yeah.
Councilmember Williams.
I think one of the questions that I have that we may want to spend some time trying to address is if people want to know more, do they know how to get it? Because to me, it always seems like the most important thing isn't so much how many people come to the meetings or whatever. It's, are you able to get the information that you want in a timely way? So if one day I'm like, wow, I'm kind of appalled that was going on. How do I find out more about it? Can I go directly to the webpage and very quickly, or, you know, look at YouTube or whatever and find out? Because I think that's the goal in a public involvement thing, is people can easily get deeper or back out depending on how much they need to know at any given time. And I'm not sure that we really have a good way of knowing that very well. You know, the little highly annoying things that I often say no to that are like, hey, would you like to take a survey when we're done to tell you if, you know, our website met your needs or whatever. But so that's something where I would like us to figure out a way, if we can, to drill down a little bit more over time.
A follow-up question. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. we have these great things that happen here where we get Mike's doing this fabulous, I mean, you know, we get $3 million here, we get 2 million there. We toot our horn, don't we, Mike? In the newsletter or?
I typically write about some of the stuff that either mayor does or myself. We do like a little article on the front page. And then every year after budget passes with the newsletter, we do send like a 1-page flyer that simplifies stuff. So that has the grants in it.
And I think it's interesting just because people see roads being torn up and I just paid my water bill. You know, and it's got nothing to do with the water bill. It's got everything to do with the fact that Mike got a $7.7 million grant to put a lift stick station in, and we're going to have a water tower. I mean, you know, it's all these other things that, I don't know how that ties into engagement necessarily, but it is tooting your own horn a little bit there. And,
I think so. And I think as we move through this process, as we look at, you know, is engagement and regional collaboration or just communications going to be one of the top overarching priorities for this council as we look at the strategic plan? And then, like, I love the notes that I'm taking here, and I'm glad that these meetings are recorded because I think we're getting into some of those discussions that we'll have later on in the process.
do we put up signs by construction? I know if you go down the road, it says this highway's being developed. The city of College Place citizens paid $0. And the grant,
there's 2 sets of signs up right now at 4th and Academy Way for the sewer lining and lift station number 5 project. They aren't exactly right by where lift station 5's at because you couldn't really fit it on the property, but it's there though. So people do see that. And one of the things I just wanted to mention was that one of the things I've noticed with our social media as well, you don't have people watching it right away. If you click a day or 2 later, there actually are quite a few views. So like on the YouTubes of these council meetings and stuff, there may be one person watching now, but then I'll check back the next day and it said there's like 127 views. And on Facebook, I mean, per week when I log in there, it says there's like about like 13,000 hits on it. So, so it's weird. It's like after the fact, it's not like wow, the things, it's strange.
Like we're gonna
Yeah.
do with the debate tonight.
yeah.
Pretty much, yeah.
I'm sorry, I'll stop talking here in a minute, but no, and that goes the whole thing about engagement versus. Thank you, Mike. You know, people later are going, my goodness, I understand it. I don't have to come in here Tuesday and spend 4 hours, you know, listening to Lauren talk. But it's one of those things where,
And that's the beauty.
it's hard. So in other words, it's a new world. How do you engage in engagement? You know, how do you measure engagement?
And we have measurable capabilities now, and that's something we can talk about in the implementation stage is how we measure that. Do we need to get tools for measurement? And, you know, it is a new age where this can be posted right after the meeting so you can watch the next day. And just before the meeting, I was talking to the police chief about, you know, 22 years ago when I started as a city planner in Colorado, I had to wait for the VHS tape from the planning commission meeting to come out to see, okay, how did that go again? And then I had to get it from the clerk, put it into a VCR and watch, but I had to wait a couple days. Now, people that can't make the meeting this evening, but they want to check it out, can check it out later or the next morning. So lots of great capabilities. I know we got a pretty big meeting here, so I wanted to get into vision statement, but I think we had another question or comment over here.
Yeah, and it's relative to this. Also it sounds to me like we need to have a Reddit and Quora presence and been with the teenagers too long, I think. And get some city funds to get the top Google search, I think. So
some SEO capabilities.
Yeah. No, I'm teasing on that one. But so I was encouraged by the amount of people that responded on the second round. So going into this vision statement, with your experience with the cities, other cities, do you feel that we're at a comfortable level, that we've got enough diverse responses and enough responses that we feel comfortable that we're getting a true sense of the city? With 157 respondents, that going forward with the vision and goals, we're pretty comfortable with that.
Yeah.
We're hearing from enough of our citizens and enough diversity of our citizens that we're we're pretty on point.
Yeah, I think so. And I think what we look at is we had 57, 55 responses, 55, 57 responses by the end of August for the September meeting where I was last here. We added, 102 more of those, including a good crop of students, and students really don't want to ever do anything, all values to students, but thinking of my own high schooler. But to answer that survey, but seeing that those trends from the summer when we did the survey, and then we added, over 100 additional responses, that those trends maintain the same, I think means that we've got a pretty good crop there and some good foundational data to go from. Okay. All right. So getting into the vision statement, I did give some homework after the meeting last time and prior to the meeting this time. Thank you. So as we look into a vision statement, and we'll have the examples of what's currently in the 2017 strategic plan, including some samples, but it is a definition of the future. So it's aspirational. You want to make sure that it's your most idealistic, your most hopeful, positive ideas that are put into place. Vision statement inspires that action and involvement. It really is if you look at the tense of the statement, it's a present tense statement. So you're speaking as if you're 10 years ahead of the curve and you've got a wildly successful city of College Place. But what makes a good vision statement that we've seen around the country for these types of projects? It's clear and simple. We talked about it being future-based. It's easy to explain. It does not necessarily outline the purpose of your organization, but it answers the question, as I said, what will success look like? And it's a compelling statement too. It gets people thinking and it gets people excited. So your current strategic plan outlines a vision statement from, sneak up to the next one. Thank you. So pretty long one. I think it was on an entire page in the document itself. I am going to take some time to read it slowly. I'm just kidding. But that was part of it's part of your strategic plan that you're working under now. It was also in the packet materials as well. And it has a lot of information there, but if you run into someone at a parade and they ask, or you're in a meeting where you've got a significant employer looking to relocate here, hey, what's your vision for the community? Do you want to make it this or an elevator speech type thing? So as we look at vision statements, being, simple, concise, but future-based, idealistic, you definitely want to have something that's a little bit smaller. For sure.
Okay. No, go ahead. I was just saying a little bit. I mean, that's quite a bit.
So it's a vision statement. How's that differ from a mission versus?
Sure. Yeah, I'm glad you asked.
If you go in an organization, they'll have 3 different flavors. Is this?
The vision is your finished product. It is the vision of your most successful oh my gosh, city of College Place. It is your idealistic, hopeful idea in the future. So it is kind of broad brush. Now your mission statement is going to be the what, why, how, the purpose of your organization is more action and present tense oriented. So we'll definitely have some examples of some mission statements because there's not a current one in the current strategic plan as well. So we do have some smaller, more recent ones that were submitted as part of this for over the summer. I could advance one. So we do have 2 to choose from, a little bit shorter. It may not be what exactly we want for this, but this is the purpose of this evening, is to go through these, see if we need to capture some words, if we need to wordsmith or edit this a little bit. But by 2029, College Place will boast a bustling downtown that seamlessly blends small businesses, housing, and educational institutions. The city will attract more businesses to boost tax revenue through sound financial management. Taxpayer funds will be utilized wisely. A warm and supportive community will transform the city into a safe, interconnected haven where people unite and assist each other. Residents will know their neighbors and keep abreast of city affairs. Furthermore, ample sidewalks and pathways will accommodate walking and cycling enthusiasts. Collaborative events organized by city businesses and school entities will radiate a welcoming and enjoyable atmosphere. So future-based has a lot of information in it, talks a lot about some of the priorities and some of the feedback we have. The other one that we have as well is in 2029, College Place will have a lively downtown area that seamlessly mixes small businesses, housing, and schools. The city will keep attracting more businesses to increase tax revenue. They'll manage funds wisely and create a warm, supportive community where people look out for each other. Residents will know their neighbors and stay updated about city happenings. There will also be plenty of sidewalks and pathways for walking and cycling. Collaborative events organized by the city, businesses, and schools will create a friendly and enjoyable atmosphere. So those were two samples that we had submitted earlier in the process. Any initial thoughts before we frame some questions here? And I've got the big flip chart to take some notes.
Councilmember Williams?
So I guess my first question is, if we're writing this as if we are in 2029, it seems like we wouldn't say will have, we will say in 2029, College Place has a lively downtown area. The city continues attracting more businesses. So that's my first sort of grammar thing. But a comment that I have is I kind of don't like attracting businesses to increase tax revenue. I mean, we all know that that's a big driver behind attracting businesses, but I don't know if if it should be something like the city attracts new appropriate businesses, or a city attracts businesses that are in line with our vision.
I kind of think beneficial.
Yeah, beneficial.
Right, beneficial business, because they're beneficial to the community, as in it's someplace for them.
Right.
Right, to
supports and attracts businesses, because we don't want to just, I don't know about you guys, but when I've been a customer for 10 years and then there's suddenly all these wonderful things for new customers, and it's like, hello, what am I, chopped liver? I kind of want
Like a cell phone service.
Yeah,
Phone if you're new.
It's like,
You've been here 20 years, you got to pay.
exactly. So, and then the other piece that I feel like is important, and but it is a bit nuts and bolty, but it's that we're ready. The city is resilient and can cope with crises, because we came through the pandemic pretty darn good, thanks to all the stuff that Mike had already put in place and the hustle that Mike and the staff did during the pandemic. And we've done things like buy water rights for the future and things like that. So I think that's a very important part of our vision, is that, yeah, this is what we want, but we're ready to cope with whatever.
Okay, Councilmember Jessup and then Councilmember Cleveland.
If I'm talking to somebody in the wrapping up that survey, my brain went to three things. That's a lot to me personally. What I heard was engaging, accessible. What's the third one? Shoot.
Fun.
Yeah, so all I heard was, I can wrap up, in my brain, I wrapped up all that survey results of accessible, engaging.
What was your third one?
And man, I can't remember, but that, you know what I mean by that? So simplistically speaking, if I'm talking to somebody like, hey, surveys are, I bragged about the survey results, to be honest with you. I was like, man, I'm impressed. We're doing great. They're like, well, what's the quick pitch? I go, well, it sounds to me like we want to continue to be engaging for all citizens. We want to be accessible for both businesses and our citizenship. And so, I kind of put it that way versus all the stuff.
Sure. Well, it sounds like there's some words jumping out at you. So you think of the third one, please let me know. I want to capture that.
Sorry. And unless I'm off, I mean, obviously.
Well, and I think that's the purpose of this exercise too, is what jumps out at you as council.
So as I read through these, I think it's got some good bones, but I am feeling like a lot of the word choice and a lot of the adjectives and verbs and whatnot just didn't flow real well, didn't necessarily capture everything. So I kind of rewrote it. Would it be all right to just read it off?
Yes, and this is recorded.
College Place is on its way to creating a diverse community downtown, blending small businesses, affordable housing, and schools from youth to higher education. College Place continues to support and attract beneficial development in business, boosting tax revenue, which it carefully manages for growth, resiliency, and reinvests in the community, providing essential municipal services for its citizens, business, and developers, improving parks, roads, and sidewalks to facilitate accessible fun activities, and hosting engageable community events to build a safe, supportive, and connected culture and community that is a great place to live and do business.
Wow, that was
Nice.
fast. I can't believe you combined that.
How was it?
Connected.
Connected, yeah.
Connect.
My third word was connected.
It's like, back to small town.
Councilmember Espinosa has his hand raised.
Yeah, the comment that I want to make is, I think both these vision statements are way too long.
Yeah.
And I just want to bring, I come from the corporate world, I work in the business arena, so I'll just point out 3 vision statements. The one from Disney states to make people happy. And we all know what Disney stands for. Google, to provide access to the world's information in one click. IKEA, to create a better everyday life for the many people. So I think that we have to condense what we want to say in a phrase that we can say quickly, and it can encapsulate the top 5 priorities that our community are looking for. And where I see those is in the survey results. When we look at, I'm looking at point number 6, that where people rank the services where they feel they get the most value from their community. Safety is at the top. You have parks and recreations. You have building and planning, economic development, and youth and community events. So in my opinion is we need to craft a short and sweet statements that encapsulates the top 5 priorities that our community appreciates as we look into the future.
Okay, I think I saw Councilmember Cleveland and then Councilmember Peterson.
I was just going to suggest that I don't know, but maybe there's a difference between a motto and a vision statement. Because I feel like, isn't our city motto a great place to live and do business? And I kind of tried to integrate that into the vision statement that I wrote, but I think we definitely do need something that's very concise and snappy. And this is certainly an improvement that those and the ones that I drafted. But I don't know.
Okay.
Councilmember Peterson.
No, I agree with this, Espinoza. I think this needs to be like 2 sentences. Max, we don't need to talk about sidewalks and tax income and what color we're gonna paint the buildings. And, I think this is something that when somebody stops you in the street, you can just say, this is our vision.
Sure.
And it needs to be, whatever we can do, to get that. The mission may be a little bit longer than that, of course. We can incorporate some of the other issues into the mission, but the vision, it needs to be short and sweet, I think. Yeah.
Councilmember Williams.
So I've been involved in a bunch of different strategic planning, from government to academia to industry. And we always seem to spend a fair amount of time debating over which is the longer one, which is the shorter one? And, you know, do we have to include everything that we do? And so I think we have a need for a little bit longer thing. Like I really liked what Councilmember Cleveland read. My impression of reading through this is the kinds of things Councilmember Espinoza was talking about, like we deliver is more the mission statement, but if we flop that around, I don't care. I just feel like we need both of those.
Sure.
Our city clerk had something to share.
I'm glad that you guys said it first. Vision statements are usually 1 to 2 sentences long, and it's supposed to be aspirational, what the dream is, you know, it's short and snappy, and you guys all said it. I just wanted to confirm that they're supposed to be very short.
And my only statement is, I felt like that top one is a ChatGPT statement.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
That's how it read to me. So I think let's simplify it, let's
Okay.
bring it down, let's highlight, and make it something that is exciting to look forward to.
Okay. We can definitely take some of the notes and comments and bring something back that's a little bit shorter, more concise, but wanted to have this conversation. Yep. We'll go through some missions next.
Well, I just want to make sure, are you guys all feeling and seeing and hearing the same thing out of the survey results? Some of the nouns that Cleveland and I kind of put on there. I just want to make sure that's, you know what I mean?
No, what?
So like he was saying the words like connected and supportive, engaging or whatever. I just want to make sure that we are all hearing.
No,
the
I
same
think that's
thing
great.
out
No,
of
no, I agree with you completely. I think
survey.
those three categories that,
Well, yeah.
yeah, but I don't think it needs to be.
Oh, yes, I'm not arguing semantics. I just want to make sure that we're all hearing the same thing that I was hearing out of the survey results of what the citizens
Well,
were.
that's my perspective. Yeah, I agree with you
Perfect. Yeah.
completely. I just, if somebody were to stop me and say, what's the vision for College Space? And I go, in 2029, College Space.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a scroll here. Yeah. Okay. Well, let's get some conversation and some, since we are dovetailing a little bit into mission as well. Let me try it. Oh, it's working, I think. Thank you. Awesome. All right. So if we look at a mission statement, which this one's going to be from scratch, is, essentially what is a mission statement? We talked about the action oriented, the what, why, how, and for whom statement about the agency. Straightforward, easy way to state why you exist. Talk about it being short, focused, much like we talked about with the vision statement. It's clear, there's no jargon, it's easy to understand and explain. Authentic, conveys a strong sense of purpose, specific. It aligns with your vision, any values you have for the community, any of your priorities. It doesn't really say how to do something, but it really talks about what you do. So I got some examples up here from other cities, and the sort of your mission statement formula, fill in the blanks from back in the school days. We do blank for blank because blank. So 2 communities around the country, City of Albany delivers fiscally. So you look at the action word, it delivers. This is what's happening currently on a day-to-day basis. Delivers fiscally responsible, highly dependable services to the citizens in the community and the region with integrity and professionalism. Same with another community named Dover. Their mission is to provide affordable, high-quality municipal services and responsive, accessible local governance, ensuring all persons the opportunity to enjoy contributing to and being part of the Dover community. So if you look at these 2 statements, you see, the present tense, you see a lot of those actions in there. We're delivering, we're providing. But what don't you see is a lot of those specifics. It doesn't talk about sidewalk placement. It doesn't talk about, business placement, that sort of thing. But any thoughts from these examples here, or just in general that we could apply to College Place?
Councilmember Williams?
I guess I have a question as to who the we is, because In the vision statement, it seems to be much more about the broader College Place. These mission statements are more about the agency of the city of College Place, not the city of Washington. So, I mean, I could see a mission statement that is for the entire city, where we support each other through, you know, city, educational, business, not nonprofit, but, you know, clubs,
Social.
organizations, community organizations, because we're a small town and we love each other.
Well, and I think that's what these meetings and this council is to decide. Is it an agency action, you know, the operations of City Hall, or is it the community is going to act on this mission together? So I appreciate you bringing that up for consideration.
And just to put it out there, I prefer the broader one for a city's strategic plan. Even, I mean, they have elected us to do this for when they don't want to show up, so. And I think it's probably a good idea for the agency to have one as well, but for the city of College Place, it seems like it ought to be more expansive.
Expansive, explain that.
So it's, it's all, this is the mission, we the people of College Place, in order to promote a more perfect union. Whoops, wrong.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
So I just looked on.
Not just we random people who showed up and decided to make a new constitution.
I'm not sure. I can't find a year on this, but I see that our current mission is to provide leadership and effective fiscally responsible services that achieve our community's vision. Do you know how old that is?
That was 17. That was back from the original strategic plan.
And is that our current mission right now?
Yeah.
That's short?
Yeah.
Wow.
Our mission is to provide leadership and effective fiscally responsible services that achieve our community's vision. I mean, how boring, but but that's what it says right now.
Yeah.
May
Provide
make a
leadership
motion to say that's good.
and effective fiscally
You
responsible.
can very well do that.
No motions during workshops. Sorry, but no, all joking aside, that's kind of on point, right? That's.
I do like how succinct that is, but we might want to replace community vision with maybe some specifics. You know, safe, responsible, connected, supportive, whatever.
Your three.
Yeah.
Councilmember Espinosa?
I would just like to propose, for the sake of time, I think that we've covered a lot of good information in this presentation, but there's still a couple of important items on the agenda that we need to cover. So I'd like to propose that we as council members bring an idea of a vision statement each and a mission statement that we can discuss and to refine and see if we can come up with a unified version of that on the next meeting, because I'd like to, for the sake of time, move to the other items as well.
Right. When do we have you again? I think that's what matters is when.
Again in October?
I believe so.
Yeah, like 2 weeks or something. I think 2 weeks from this evening. Mike and I will confirm that.
So by that next meeting, you want to bring back what?
Oh, it's what you want to bring back. If it's whether it's an example of a mission statement, a vision statement. That is composed there. I'll come up with some stuff based on our discussion this evening as well.
Okay, Councilmember Peterson.
Let me float an idea out here real quick. It's getting kind of late. Is it possible, Mike, I don't know how much time you needed to spend on those next 3 items. Do you want to I'm willing to set up another workshop in a week. I'm speaking for myself now. We're missing 2 council members.
Yeah.
Is that something you want to think about, or am I?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, these other items, because you don't all act on them till the end of November anyhow. So I would just suggest take a look at them in the next council meeting. I could at least go over just the current years, but then it's on you all to look at the whole document. I actually think it's more important to get through this than the other stuff.
That was my.
Yeah.
Okay, so I will, then as mayor, say, please, take a look at these documents, the 3, there's 3 of them, right? There's, so please review them. Please be prepared for discussion, or Mike will highlight them at the next council meeting next week. Do we need to approve them at that time? Is that why you're coming to, they're just gonna be
I just
sharing?
I just do that so that way as you go through a budget, you see what is where and why.
Yeah.
And what the trend is.
Okay, so if you have any questions, make sure that you review them well enough that if you have questions, you're prepared to ask Mike those questions on that date.
Yeah, but you all won't be asked to approve all those till the last meeting in November.
All right.
So we're not going to shopsmith a mission statement and vision statement tonight. You know, I mean, this is something. So
Wordsmith.
What?
Wordsmith.
Wordsmith. Shopsmith. I'm sorry. That's how
We're getting
that's how
busy
hard
here.
and delusional I am. But this is something you got to run through some more stuff here with us, correct?
Yeah, we have identified, 10 priorities that came out of the engagement.
Okay.
Would love to get that down to 5 to 7 priorities that we can frame all your goal setting around.
So we could crank through that.
We can crank through that and finish
then,
up.
I
Unless
think
someone has a vision or mission statement that they want to throw out that unanimously gets approved, but
yeah, I think we're going to need to think about that. You know, I think that's going to take some time. I think. Yeah.
So we need to reduce those keywords.
we can reduce the keywords, reduce the content. I'll draft some of the notes from the discussion once I can, and I'll go through the recording of this evening as well. And then I'll bring back some examples based upon our discussion, based upon the priorities. If every council member wants to bring an example, or if a handful want to, and then we can have a discussion before we get into goal setting at our next meeting.
We're talking vision or vision and mission?
Vision and mission, I believe, yes.
Okay. Okay, so council members, I mean, I think we all have some thoughts and some keywords that we really like. So I say we do that. I say, you know, we bring them and see what kind of things that we can put together from something. There's going to be something that we all have some, may not be the exact wording, but it's going to have that statement, right?
Exactly. And I think to that point, you know, you keep in mind through this process, and especially as we get into goal setting, you know, I like to frame this around, you know, striving for 80%. You know, if you can get 80% of the way there, whether it's, you know, 80% agreement, 80%, yeah, it's not the entire statement that I want, but, you know, it's 80% there, then I think that's great for our project and our process. I also like to operate under consensus, which, you know, is a definition of consensus with the strategic planning process is I can live with this and I can support it. So as you look at 80%, as you look at drafting some of these statements, because we do have a lot of work to go through the next couple of months on this, just make sure, hey, we're 80% there. I can live with this. I can support it. We can get it on paper with the community. And as I always say, your strategic plan is a living document. So you should be looking at it, revising it quarterly, annually, making sure you're accomplishing those goals. And you can always change a mission statement or a vision statement if you need to later. So I'm looking forward to hearing some of that and seeing some of the examples next time.
All right, we'd rather not have to change it again, but did you want to send those keywords that you mentioned to Mike, and then he could share it, or to our clerk?
Yeah, give me a couple days though, for sure.
No worries. Yeah, no worries. That's gonna be fun. That way we have those keywords that we're all thinking of that we need to bring down or utilize in a better way.
For sure. Okay, let me jump into priorities real quick, and then I'll round out my portion of the evening. So we look at priorities. Priorities are sort of your framework of a strategic plan. So your priorities are going to be sort of your 1 or 2 word sections, your 1 or 2 word priorities of the community that you want. Those are your biggest issues and your opportunities that are facing your organization in the long term. So it says 3 to 15 years up there, but this would be through the course of your 5-year strategic plan and beyond. So if you look at the example, it's something as simple as public safety. Simply stated, public safety is a complex issue, of course. But what we look at is, you know, in your opinion, what is the most important issues facing the community in the coming years? What opportunities, if you're able to take advantage of them, would have the most positive impact on the community? So I brought this up last time, and this was sort of a distillation of priorities that came out of our engagement, the interviews, the surveys, very overarching items that could have multifacets to it. Affordable and attainable housing, infrastructure improvements, economic development, regional collaboration, public safety, park and community space, facilities improvements, bike and ped infrastructure, well-planned growth, and recreation opportunities. So, you know, the standard practice with strategic planning, because you're going to have a lot of even more specific goals that come underneath any of these, is have 5 to 7 priority areas. I see some opportunities where some of these could be combined and reduced, but I wanted to talk to this group and just see, okay, so what have you seen? We talked about some priorities that came out from the survey. But as far as, you know, do you see any opportunities for combination here? Do any of these speak as your top 3 or your top 1 priority? And see what we can bring back next time, 5 to 7 priorities framework that we can base our goals off of. So I'll leave that open for discussion and any questions, and I'll take some notes.
Yeah, well, I'll go through council members so that everybody gets their shot. Councilmember Jessup.
Yeah, if I see it correctly, like infrastructure improvement and growth are all kind of similar. So being able to kind of handle and prioritize growth opportunity. Do I see that right?
Do you see that as let me get to the mic for Councilmember.
I see it as the same thing. Infrastructure improvement, bike and pedestrian infrastructure, sorry. I see that as well-planned growth. I see those all as infrastructure growth. And then.
Can I, real quick, what's the difference between facilities and infrastructure? Help me understand that, just so I should.
Well, and this what came up, so the definition could be defined by you all as well.
Yeah.
What I've seen is, in some of these where it's shrouded as infrastructure improvements, or infrastructure could encompass a whole myriad of things from it could be your facility, it could be your bike and ped, it could be, you know, it's your streets, it's your utilities. So if you're looking at an overarching priority area, you know, I've worked with communities where infrastructure or, you know, robust, sustainable infrastructure that, you know, we're building, but we're maintaining is a priority area. And then you have specific goals underneath to address bike and ped. You have, you know, to address facilities, like we need to build a new police station. We need to do these sorts of things. So the difference I see is, like, I guess facilities would be a component of infrastructure, but that's also as defined as the community as well.
Got it.
From a technical engineering standpoint, infrastructure is stuff that goes between things, whereas facilities are on a specific site.
Okay. Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Councilmember Jessup, did you still have your comment, or are you done?
No, that's great. Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Cleveland?
There's definitely some opportunity here for combining things. I see growth and economic development as combinable. I think when you think of College Place, I think of the space and how people move through it, what they do there. So I see some room for combining park and community space, pedestrian and bike and pedestrian infrastructure, as well as recreation opportunities. This is combinable as well.
Okay.
And You know, there is certainly some overlap between facilities and infrastructure improvements. I mean, that's general community investment. That would be another potential thing to focus on. But those are kind of my thoughts on how to boil it down.
Councilmembers, oh, sorry, you had a
No,
question?
go ahead.
Okay.
I was gonna remark on the community investment. I think, you know, certainly all encompassing, but definitely sets the stage for specific goals. Go ahead, Mayor.
Councilmember Espinosa.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So the way that I see it is when I look at the survey results and I see the priorities that our citizens came up with, I would like to mirror those priorities because that's where they see the value coming out of. And that is number 6 in your survey. So I don't know if we can bring that one up, but I think that a lot of the priorities that you have here kind of mirror already what the people are saying in our community. And I think that my job as a steward is to provide what they want and focus on what they feel is going to be more beneficial for them now and in the future.
Good. It's top 6 from the survey.
6.
Which 6? Because these are what, 10? 1, 2, 3, 4.
I think unless we can pull it up too from the report.
It's okay.
Okay.
Well, I mean, obviously, public safety was at the top. It seemed like that wasn't
Yeah,
something that
and I don't have it
everybody
printed out in
could-
front of me, so.
That's okay. Councilmember Peterson?
You know, we were talking about infrastructure and facilities. Boy, I hate to even bring this up, but here it goes. There have been quite a few comments. There are pods in College Place of well-to-do people, nice communities, nice homes, nice cars. They're directed towards me over the last year or so. There have been a lot of comments about a deterioration of homes in our core area of College Place. And if you want any proof, get in a vehicle and drive around a few streets. You know, I think there's a small community feel. I think that's one, before I forget, I want to make sure that I think that fits into some of this, you know, the idea that we love a smaller town versus whatever. I think that's been a burden and something I've thought about a lot, though, as far as going back to the condition of homes in our city. And I don't know if there's anything that we can do about that. Is there something, are there, you know, but there are some deterioration of areas in large sections of our city that are, I think, alarming to me over the last few years. Talking about siding, stuff outside, roofs. We're talking about house upkeep. And I don't know if that's because of people's income levels or what's going on here. But I don't know, and I don't know how a city is involved with improving that.
Sure.
Without, you know, getting into all kinds of issues. But I think that's something that's been brought up to me numerous times lately. That's a kind of a key issue to how our city looks, how it presents itself, and what can we do to make that better?
And we've captured that too as we look through priorities. Where could we lump that in? You know, where could we fit that in?
The zone enforcement is something Mike and I have talked a lot about because of those types of things of how to, you know, we have one zone enforcement officer that also does animal control, that also does.
Well, yeah, that's our issue because the current code enforcement program. So the way it's funded is that Ron Nordman, besides being code enforcement's also our animal control officer, parking officer, and evidence technician.
I'm not talking about code enforcement. I'm talking about the fact that somebody doesn't have enough money to paint their house.
Yeah.
I'm talking about somebody doesn't have enough money to put a roof on their house.
I see. Well,
You know,
Yeah.
and you know what I'm saying?
right.
Yeah.
Well, you know,
Well,
and our
let's-
codes are only things that, you know, for the outside, right? But
For
you're
sure.
right. How do you, I don't know
Yeah.
of things that you can do because we can't gift money to somebody, right? You know, to,
But
to fix up their
And
windows.
this is a great discussion for our goal setting
Yeah.
as well as we go
Yeah.
into the deeper parts. That's why I wanted to capture it to make sure that we can bring that up.
Yeah.
Later on, for sure.
And just, the top six, just so you know, the top three was public safety, police, fire, EMS.
Yeah.
Right, so that was one. And then parks, building and planning, and economic development. If you combine police, fire, and EMS as just one, then after that comes community events, youth recreation. I think it's obviously sounding like people want to be able to do things here in their own community. That's what they want, right? If for entertainment, for health reasons, because you're outside and you have, opportunity to do things outside. But there's also the economic development. People want to be able to shop and live and go to appointments here within their own community instead of having to leave our community for everything.
For sure.
Councilmember Williams.
In regards to that last point, although we can't gift, it does seem like that we might be able to help coordinate with charitable agencies, whether it be Blue Mountain Action Council, Leadership Club, Exchange Club, the humanitarian engagement at the university, and help bring those people together with the people who need that help.
Sorry, I didn't mean to physically wreck. I just had a,
That's fine.
sorry, excuse me. I have a tendency to be direct, so I'm trying to be less direct. But
That's okay, be
but in a positive way. We're doing mission and vision and goals. We also have a new university president and leadership, and they have a very significant impact role in our community. I'm wondering if I'm jumping the gun here or if I'm stepping out of place of my role. I don't know, but I'm wondering if part of this is also now seeing if we can, which I think you guys are, so forgive me. But mention it as we're doing this, integrating them into this process of saying now are you new leadership, new president, not saying anything negative or anything about the past, but just, opening up to saying, hey, we're doing mission and goals and visions for our community. And here are some of the things that our citizens are saying. You are a significant portion of this community. How are we going to work together to get these things prioritized, continued, supported?
Well, and I know that Mike meets with the staff at the university regularly, but it occurs to me from after what you're saying that it might be worthwhile for the council to meet with the university board.
Yes, something of this nature. Yes.
Because they are the ones that set the policy as, why the university feels that it's a good use of their money to invest an awful lot in property in the town in which they live, which seems like a case of putting all your eggs in one basket.
That's
But I
right.
clearly don't understand all the ins and outs.
Right. So something of that nature.
But
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But council to board, I think, as well as
I
Mike.
like
to-
that
I didn't know.
president.
Yeah.
Right.
Thank you. I didn't know it was appropriate if I'm stepping out, if this is something that's, yeah.
Just real quickly, I know that I think Community College did away with their program, but I know for quite some time, they had like it was a construction class. It was and it was tied into BMAC.
Yes.
And they were going through and either building new homes on lots or they're going through and retrofitting houses. And the students are getting experience. We don't have a program like that. This is kind of Pollyannish right now, but that's something like that where minimal cost to the homeowner, the student, it's credit or it's something like that. And if BMAC gets involved, that's something where I appreciate what you're saying there. There could be a tie in there somewhere. Yeah.
Well, that could be it. This turned into a big brainstorming thing, but it seems like working with the trades that require apprenticeships and the high school. If somebody could like coordinate all of that and be like, okay, yeah, we're gonna throw in a little bit of money for some plumbers to oversee some students doing plumbing or, whatever.
And a lot of this is paint and roof.
Sure.
And some, I mean, you get past that and a lot of this is better.
And again, I want to just maintain the focus here on the workshop as
Well,
well.
if I may though, I guess that's kind of my point with board to council, council to board is a part of this process. I'm wondering how much they would then be in this process, if that's appropriate in terms of like, I don't know what percentage of the city is basically owned by them. Seems to me that it's kind of like, well, hey, when we're doing our mission and vision, this is what our citizens are saying. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like I said, I don't know.
Yeah, we could talk about that afterwards, but we definitely don't want anyone but the elected officials to be making the decisions, right?
Yes,
Right.
yes.
But yeah,
And we did have involvement in our stakeholder interview process with the Walla Walla University president and staff there at certain levels. I'd have to go see through, but go ahead, Mike.
And I was gonna say too, a good portion of the additional survey results came about because Student Life Vice President Darren Wilkins, him and I had discussion, and he did blast out to all of the students too, as well as staff. So there was quite a bit of engagement that way too.
Yeah.
yeah.
And the board meets, I don't know that it would fit in exactly with this particular process, but the Walla Walla board just came up and just approved a strategic plan for the university. And if we're just in the process of approving a strategic plan here, and the board does meet in College Place at least once or twice a year, it might be worthwhile to get together to say, hey, let's share our strategic plans with each other and talk about how we could help each other out.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you want to go through your list?
I actually
I see it there. I see it there.
So I kind of have done like Councilmember Cleveland did and put together kind of my list of a different way of looking at the priorities that I think pretty much covers what we have here, which is safe community, affordable community, resilient community. That's where the infrastructure all comes in. Connected community and fun community.
So safe, affordable, resilient, connected, and fun.
And fun.
I can see where they combine into that.
Like community for
Right,
all.
yeah. Where,
I'm sure it needs wordsmith.
where would, and it may not even fit, quick, simple. So aside from housing, we keep talking about a lively downtown or a vibrant downtown, economic development, but our downtown core is tired looking, right? Our structures are tired looking, they're dated. Facades aren't painted, buildings that themselves are wearing out. So I don't know how we attract economic development to a downtown core when our downtown core looks tired and worn out and dated.
Sure.
And I don't know who owns the buildings, but they're clearly not doing anything. Okay. So I think that's a big issue for us because we're never going to be able to make our downtown core vibrant if we don't take care of it, get those issues addressed.
So I used to live in Tumwater, and they had a different reason why they didn't have a downtown, which was the freeway came through and wiped it out. But what they did is they just said, okay, you know what? We're going to stop worrying about that. We're going to make a new downtown. So I sort of, in my head, as we do the new roundabout, as the school comes in, as we have the commercial and residential Stonebridge, is that what it's called? Stone Creek. I think our downtown just needs to move south. And that's our downtown. And this is the university center. I mean, I don't see any other way unless you're gonna condemn like the whole downtown.
I know, I've troubled with that. Councilmember Peterson?
It's always, and this, it's always been a tale of two cities. You've got you're not gonna put a winery down here in front of the college.
No, I wouldn't think so.
You know what I'm saying? Would you put a winery over by Walmart? Probably. And it's always been this, there's always been this separation. And so what is downtown, you know, and especially if there's any improvements over there, to your point, I think that's something we need to tackle with. What is downtown?
We're investing,
Downtown.
but you know, we're
But
investing in
it could fit in
parking.
on one of those.
Right,
Yeah.
right. We're investing in parking. We're investing in trying to do that, but I think, yeah, I think structures are a significant
Yes.
barrier to our downtown.
And I love you all are thinking big and thinking of these ideas because it's exciting me as well too. But yeah, I'll pull us back for priority.
All right, we're listening to you.
5 here. Up there that Councilmember Williams brought forth. Safe community, affordable community, resilient community, connected community, and fun community. So seeing these words, I mean, this is part of a strategic plan. These are great priorities. It's I think it's a little bit, it's more fun, I think, than just, oh, public safety.
Yeah.
Planning, you know, but those are also great compartments to fit all of these ideas in place, whether it's, you know, helping people with their homes or a brand new downtown south of here. That sort of thing, any public safety, any infrastructure types of things, but love to get the group's thoughts on this, on these 5 compartments. If those are acceptable, can you live with them? Can you support them?
I know we're trying to think of a cute acronym, but we couldn't come up with anything.
Well, we can come up with those later
I think
too.
they're great. I myself think we can fit. I think we can find something in that.
Yeah, scarf.
Scarf, okay.
All this place needs a scarf.
I'm seeing some graphic tie-ins with the final document.
We're getting goofy. All right. All right. Anybody have any thoughts other than loving it? All right. I think everybody's loving it.
Okay, and I can bring these back next time too. And we'll confirm them, give you some time to think and go from there. So. All right, we got some ideas for vision, got some great direction there. We got some homework for both vision and mission, and we've got 5 priority areas that we're gonna let marinate until I see you next time. Unless there's any questions or comments, then that's all I have.
Don't
this
ask for
evening.
those.
Look,
It's
That's
just
directing the mic.
this is heavy lifting, you know,
Yeah.
this is not, and I think we've done I think we've done a really
Very good.
good job tonight. Yeah.
Yeah, Zach, thank you so very much.
All right, thank
Truly.
you, everyone.
Now you got us thinking a little too hard.
No, that's good. Keep
Thank you.
thinking.
Thank you for sticking with us all day, all night.
Oh, you bet. Brings back memories.
Okay, so we've decided we're going to not do the last 3 and give Mike a break and let him go home as well. So,
Doing anything till 11?
yeah. So please remember to take a look at those let me see, the plans, facility plan, capital facility, equipment replacement, and technology,
Yeah.
information technology.
And just remember, Cliff's Notes is a spreadsheet. The booklet is if you need something to do at night, it's 90 pages. So, yeah.
Don't make him go over those 90 pages in a meeting. Is there any other business for good of the order? All right, hearing none, I conclude the workshop at, let's see, make sure the clocks are right. I have 8:05 PM. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Zach, thank you. Thank you for your patience with us.
Thank you, Matt.
Thanks, everybody. Now, yeah, really, good conversations. Thank you. That's probably one of our liveliest meetings we've had with actually feeling good about it.
You and education, we've done these 1,000 times.
Are we off? We're off? Oh, we still have a quorum. Yeah, we do still have a quorum. Okay. Good night. Okay.